Okay guys, this video is going to be about division of polynomials, right? So this is pretty much the last section for section 5.7. Remember that for polynomials it's going to be over addition, subtraction, multiplying, and dividing polynomials. And I've already uploaded a video over addition and subtraction. So this starts on page 302, and let's get started. All right, so the first thing you notice is I talked about a little bit of vocabulary where there are monomials. And a monomial means there's just one term. Okay? A binomial is when you have two terms, and again, I apologize for my handwriting. And then, of course, a trinomial means three. So trinomial is three terms in an expression. And then, of course, a polynomial means many, many terms. Okay? So when you have four or more. So in this case, where we're going to get started is if I look at example 1, the skill practice number 1, they give us 36a to the 4th, and then we have negative 48a to the 3rd, and the third term is plus 12a to the 2nd. So this would be a trinomial, and what we want to do is divide into this expression or trinomial this 6a to the 3rd. And this is, again, a monomial. So this is one term with three terms. All right, so one thing we should notice as we look at this a little bit closer is that, of course, it's division, okay? So we first have to ask ourselves, 6 can divide into 36 6 times. And then when you have a to the 4th power being divided by a to the 3rd, well, when you follow the law of exponents, you want to subtract these, okay? So this becomes a, and it came from 4 minus 3, which you get 6a, and we don't write ones, okay? So we've now divided this piece into this term, all right? So now we move to the next one. So now we're saying 6 divides into negative 48, right? And it divides in there, negative 8. So now we have, let me do it right here, negative 8, but we have a to the 3rd being divided by a to the 3rd. So these two are going to cancel out. So we just have negative 8 so far. So we got 6a minus 8. And then, of course, do it again. 6 divides into 12 two times. And here we have two a's at the top, and we have three a's at the bottom. So, of course, there's one more a here, because it would be a 2 minus 3, which gives us negative 1. So this is really 2a to the negative 1. And remember, this is another law of exponent, where if it has a negative, you have to sit back and put it as 1 over a. Okay, so to clean this up, this came from the first division of the term, this came from the second, and then this one is the third, okay? And of course I'm missing the 2, so there should be a 2 up here. Okay, so let me clean all this up for you. The final answer to this is going to be 6a minus 8, and then we're going to have a positive 2 divided by a. Looks a little funny, okay? So I want to stress more than anything is that you have to make sure that when you're doing the division, this particular monomial, it will divide into each individual term, okay? And also you have to think two things. You have to think about the coefficient doing the division and then the law of exponents, okay? So let's do another one. For the next one, skill practice number 2, give me 1 second. I need more papers than this. Negative 15 x to the 3rd, y to the 4th, 1 second to get caught up here, plus 25x squared, y to the 3rd, and then the last term is negative 5xy squared, and this is all being divided by negative 5x y squared. Okay, now so for this one, it's a little different because we have an x term and a y term, but the work is still the same. So listen very carefully. I'm going to do it a little different this time. I'm going to separate everything. So if I have negative 15, x to the 3rd, y to the 4th, and I divide that by negative 5xy squared, what would happen is negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. X to the 3rd, and there's a 1 here, so I'm going to do subtraction. I would get x squared. And then I have y to the 4th being divided by y to the 2nd, so I subtract these two, I would get y squared. So that's the first term, okay? We're going to do it again here. So now I have 25x squared y to the third being divided by negative 5xy squared. Okay, I'm going to move up just a little bit. So now for this one, it's 25 being divided by negative 5. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So this is negative 5. Again, this is x squared. There's a little 1 here. So 2 minus 1 is 1. It would just give me an x. And then y to the third, so this 3, subtract 2, we just get a y. Okay? And for the last one, okay, you notice that these are identical. Okay, so this is just going to be a positive 1. So let me just put that right here. So I have negative 5xy squared divided by negative 5xy squared. And so again, if you have something being divided by itself, like 7 divided by 7 is 1, well, even though this is, looking kind of weird looking, this is still 1. Okay, so the final answer to this problem is going to be 3x squared y squared minus 5xy plus 1. Okay, so again, you're just dividing that individual monomial into each individual term in the trinomial. Okay, so I want to do 1 or 2 more of this one, and then I'm going to make like a part A and a part B. Okay guys, in this video, what I'm going to do is just probably start now on long division. So before I was doing problems where you have like one singular term going into individual terms, and in this case you have a binomial, which is a 2-term expression dividing into a trinomial. So the way this works is just how let me just kind of write this over to the side. If I had something like 15 being divided by 5, or another way to see this visually could be 15 over 5. So then you've heard me many times when I've been teaching, I say TBO, right? So TBO is when you say like top in, bottom out. So the top number, which is our numerator, will go inside the division house, and the bottom number, the denominator, goes outside. So as you can see, of course, the answer to this, 5 divides into 15 3 times. Then we would multiply, we would subtract, 0, we're done. Okay, but if there was something else, then of course we would bring it down and so forth. So I know that you guys know how to divide 15 by 5, but I just wanted to kind of clarify the division cycle, where of course the acronym is divide, multiply, then you subtract, and then you bring down the next term. So this DMSB is the division cycle, and then of course you cycle back again. Okay, so just kind of reviewing that, now we'll get into the new problem. So how do we take a binomial like x plus 2, which again, this number is dividing into this expression here, 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. All right, so here we go. Okay, so one step at a time. The one thing I want you to know is that you take the first term and you take the first term of this other particular expression, and on the side of your paper you want to first figure out what number that you want to put up here. So I took the 3x squared, I'm dividing it by x, and if I do this, the answer would be 3 divided by 1 is 3, x squared divided by x is just x. So we're going to put a 3x right above this term. Okay, so now what happens is I'm going to take this x, multiply it by 3x, which gives me 3x squared, and then I'm going to take this constant part of that binomial and multiply also by 3x, and this becomes 6x. So it's a positive 6x. So as you can see now, I have multiplied, and so here's what I have. Now after we multiply, okay, because we did the division, now we've multiplied, the next step is to subtract. So if we subtract, you want to put this in parentheses, put your subtraction symbol, okay? And of course, when you have a parentheses and a negative outside, you have to do the distributive property. So this is a -1, and we're going to distribute and multiply it through the parentheses. So this, what will happen is, instead of these being positive, they will now become negative. Okay, and so this is not confusing. I'm going to change that to a plus, and then again, these minuses have now been distributed. Sorry, that doesn't look the best. So now what we'll do is after we subtract, so 3x squared minus 3x squared, that term is gone. And then I have 2 minus 6, this is negative 4x. And then the last step is to bring down and include the sign. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to start it again. We're going to take this term, negative 4x, divided by x. And again, in doing this part here, it just helps you to figure out what particular term you need to put up here to start doing your multiplying, and then you keep going through the division cycle. So the answer to this is negative 4, because of course those would cancel out. So we're going to put a negative 4 up here. And now we're going to, let's see if I can get another color. We're going to do it again, but we're going to take the x and multiply by the negative 4. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And then we're going to do 2 times negative 4. Okay, hopefully you can see those arrows. So I did this one times negative 4, and then 2 times negative 4. This is a purple color. So we get negative 8 here. And then again, now that I have multiplied this term by this constant and then multiplied this constant with this one, I have to subtract. So you put it in the parentheses, put a negative sign, draw a line. And again, this is a negative 1, so you have to do the distributive property. So to not make this confusing, I'm going to change that to a plus. This will turn positive after the multiplication with the negative 1, and this one will also turn positive. Okay, so now if I do negative 4x plus 4x, that term is gone. And if I do negative 5 plus 8, I get positive 3, which as you can see, there's nothing else to bring down, so this is my remainder. So the final answer to this problem is 3x minus 4. Now remainders are really interesting because they're just like extra pieces. Okay, so we're going to take this 3 and put it with respect to this binomial. So the final part of this is remainder 3 over x plus 2. Okay, so that's the answer for the first one. All right, so let's do another one. All right, hopefully that makes sense. All right, for the next one, I'm doing the skill practice, number 4 on page 305. So this one, it says 9x to the third, yep, plus 11x plus 10, all being divided by 3x plus 2. All right, so again, top in, bottom out. So I'm going to write my T-bow just so y'all can see that being consistent. So I'm going to put all of this expression into the division house. And then out here, I got a little distracted because I wanted to mention something. So this, of course, is the number on the outside for the bottom, and I'm going to talk about the inside. So that's why I stopped in the middle of doing it, because notice how you have the 9x to the third power term. That's the first one. You notice there is no x squared term. So when there's no x squared term, you want to, or if there's missing pieces for your powers, you want to just still put it like a placeholder. Okay, you still put like a placeholder there. Okay, but now it goes 3, 2, the next term has a 1, so here goes the 11x, and then here's the constant. Okay, so again, this is what I call a special case, because you do not have all of the different powers inside of this top expression. So here we go. So we still start with trying to figure out what to put at the top. So I come to the side of my paper and I say 9x to the third, divide that by 3x. So this becomes 9 divided by 3 is 3, x to the third divided by x is x squared. So I'm going to put a 3x squared up at the top. And now that I've done my dividing, it's time to multiply. So 3x times 3x squared is a 9x to the third. And then 2 times 3x squared is 6x squared. Draw a line. And now that we've multiplied, it's time to subtract. So you encapsulate or put a parentheses around that expression, put your negative 1, distribute it through, and again, to make it not confusing, I've multiplied that -1 through here, so this becomes negative and that one becomes negative. Okay, so now that I do my subtraction, this will cancel out. And now we have 0 minus 6, which this is a negative 6x squared, and then we're going to bring down the 11x. Okay, and we keep going. So now we're going to take the negative 6x squared. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Negative 6x squared. Divide that by 3x. And this becomes negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So we put our negative 2 for our coefficient. X squared divided by x is x. Okay, so now I have a minus 2x up here. Now I'm going to multiply 3x times here, negative 6x squared. 2 times negative 2x is a negative 4x. And now I'm subtracting. Okay, so now the next thing is distribute the -1 through. So I'm going to change this to a plus. That becomes positive, and that becomes positive. So you know that you do it correctly because you always want those first two terms to cancel out. So that's gone now. 11 plus 4 is 15x. And the last thing, sorry about the noise, plus 10. All right, last step here. So now let's do 15x divided by 3x. The answer to this is just 5. Again, those x's cancel out. So up here, sorry about that. Up here, we're just going to put a 5 here. And this is the last time, and let's see what our remainder is, or if we don't have one. So if I do 3x times 5, I get 15x. If I do 2 times 5, I get 10. And the beauty of this is when I do my subtraction, okay, I'll distribute through, and this will become a negative, and this will be a negative. And guess what? Everything cancels out. There's no remainder. So the answer to this problem, okay, is going to be what's exactly up here at the top. So the answer is 3x squared minus 2x plus 5. That's the answer. That this 3x plus 2 divides into this expression this much. Okay. Now to double check, you can always take this trinomial, multiply it by this binomial, and then of course you'll get this answer, and that's when you know you did it right. Okay. So I'm going to do one more, and then I'll just stop it here. So the last one I would like to do is number 6 for the skill practice. Another sheet of paper. So for this one, we have 6x to the third. Let's see where my hand goes here. 6x to the third, and there's a minus x squared plus 3x minus 5. Being divided by 2x plus 3. All right. So for this one, same thing. I'm going to move a lot quicker. So I have 6x over 3 divided by 2x. This becomes 3x squared. I multiply, and I'm going to get 6x cubed. I multiply here, and I get 9x squared positive. I'm subtracting. So now I'm going to distribute, and this one will become negative, and so will that one. Okay, that will cancel out, and this will become negative 10x squared. Bring down the 3x. Come to the side of your paper. Divided by 2x will give you negative 5x. Okay, so we got negative 5x. Just be very careful with your signs. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So be careful with your signs when you do your multiplication. So this is your negative 10x squared. This times this is going to be negative 15x. And we got to subtract. So when I subtract, you become positive and you become positive. This cancels out, and I have 18x. And just squeezing this in here, there's that minus 5. So now I have 18x over 2x, which is 9. So I'm going to put a plus 9 up there. Sorry about that. And we're going to multiply for 18x. And then we multiply those two for 27. We're subtracting. So this will cancel out, and this is -5 minus 27, which means we add them together, and we get -32 as our remainder. So to put the final answer together, the answer is 3x squared minus 5x plus 9, and our remainder is a -32 over 2x plus 3. You always put it with respect to what you were dividing by. All right, so that ends this video. I hope that you do well with this, take your time, and I'll see you guys next week. Good luck on the test.